director of an initiative called Lebanon for Entrepreneurs, which was created by the Lebanese expats in tech and finance. Our objective is to accelerate the development of the technology startup ecosystem in Lebanon. I'm going to be moderating this session, and I have the pleasure to have with me on the panel Nicolas Rouhana, who heads IM Capital, Sami Abu Saab, who's the CEO of Speed at BDD, and Jad Salemi, who is the managing director at Phoenician Funds. So I think the format today is each of them is going to present, at least some of them are going to present PowerPoints, and otherwise I'm going to be asking them questions so that's a dynamic session. And we will also open it up for you to ask any questions you might have to our speakers. So I'm going to begin first with Sami, since Speed's presentation is up and running. Sami, the floor is yours.
Okay, great. Good evening, everyone. So to start today, I wanted to give a presentation not only about Speed, but also about a little bit the ecosystem in Lebanon and what's been happening a little bit in the region. So to start with, I put this data together. I collected it from a Deloitte report, and that states a little bit about the investments happening in Lebanon and the region, in the Middle East mostly. And what it's trying to highlight, and the thing I want to share with you the most, is the highlight between the years 2014 and 2015. And what we can see there is that the amount of money invested didn't really change a lot, but the number of investments more than doubled. They went from 72 to 176. What does that mean? That means the mindset and the shift in the ecosystem in the Middle East in general is moving more towards riskier investments and a bigger number of investments. That means smaller tickets are being invested and potentially less, I would say, PE activity and more VC activity. So I think this is one of the highlights I want to share about the region and how this is shaping with time. Now, the other thing I want to highlight is that if we look at Lebanon particularly and what's happening in Lebanon compared to the rest of the region, the volume of investments and dollar amounts is around 14% out of the region. And this is ranking second jointly with Saudi Arabia. So this is a big information for us to know that Lebanon is ranking at the same level as Saudi Arabia in the region in terms of volume of dollar invested. Now, that being said, I want to talk a bit more about what has happened in Lebanon in the last couple of years, especially after Circular 61. And this slide potentially represents a lay of the ground of all the investment funds in Lebanon and all the activities that are happening around investments from the pre-acceleration stage all the way to Series A and Series B. And as you can see here, there are multiple players that are starting at a level of pre-acceleration. You can see the names from Al City to Eza that just started right now, their program. There is also the AEB CRN, there is Torch Academy, and a couple others like Tripoli Entrepreneur Club. And lately, also there is a Shuf Entrepreneur Club doing some activities there. When we get to the level of actual acceleration, and I didn't put Speed as the only one there because we are the only one there, it's actually because what we're doing is a bit unique because we are at a stage where we're after the entrepreneurs are ready to start their business and they're aware of what the idea they want to pursue is and how they want to take it to the next level. And we're just before they are ready to go and raise investments. And we come to fill that gap, particularly in that space. So that's basically the stage you are at. Now, after Speed, there are multiple seed investors out in the market that are growing in numbers lately. So Broadgate and Yafi is one of them, and this is they're up and running now, and this has been starting in the last year. You have Seeders, and I think Nicola can talk a bit more about Seeders MBA, which is the program that IM Capital started as well about angel investors. And there is also Sanad, which is another fund in the market here. There is also Jad from Phoenician Fund, that's a fund that's also starting at the seed level and continuing to Series A. Again, he probably can talk much more about that as well. And then at a later stage, you have the big, more established funds, the more traditional ones, from Veritech Fund 2, MEVP Impact Fund, WAMDA. You have also others like Cedar Mundi and Leap that comes at a Series B of investment. Now, in addition to those, there are the programs that come to take the startups to the growth level and growth stage outside Lebanon. One of those is the UK Lebanon Tech Hub, and that has a program for internationalization. It's an acceleration, but also a focus towards taking these companies outside of the country. And then finally, there are the matching funds, and there are also 4 or 5 of them. I think there's IM Capital, there is Endeavor, who's doing a lot in that space as well. There is ISME, and we have ISME actually is part of Kafalat. So that's basically the lay of the ground of how a startup can progress down the value chain from having an idea and just thinking of where I want to go to get my first funding, and how they can progress along this value chain across multiple funds and multiple rounds of investment in Lebanon. Next, I want to highlight a bit more the unique value of Speed and what we actually provide. So Speed has been started by 5 organizations. These are Veritech Fund 2, MEVP Impact Fund, IM Capital, Badr, and Lebanon for Entrepreneurs. And we had a plan for 5 years with a $6 million budget, $3 million of which will go into investments of $30K into 100 startups. Now, what we provide and our value proposition is basically that we require entrepreneurs to come to our space and to be full-time committed over a program for 3 months. During that 3 months, we provide them with $30K in cash and the equivalent $30K in-kind services that include all kinds of workshops, from marketing to legal to finance to term sheet negotiations, all the stuff that an entrepreneur needs to get their startup and become more investment ready. What else we do is that we make sure that they are very well highlighted to the market from day one by doing a launch event that attracts all the media and investors. And at the end of the 3 months acceleration, we make sure that they're also exposed to as many investors as possible. So we do weekly meetings with investors with all the funds you have seen on the previous slide. And in addition, we do a final demo day where we get all the ecosystem to come and attend what these startups were able to accomplish given $30,000 and 3 months of acceleration. Each batch, we have also a potential for the startups to apply to Silicon Valley to a program called LabNet Ignite, powered by Blackbox Connect, a bit of a long name. And that program potentially provides them with a 2-week immersion program and exposure in Silicon Valley. And this is something very important that we really appreciate and we really push for, since this is a unique opportunity for people who are starting from here to go to the US and get that Silicon Valley experience there. Here I want to highlight a little bit what we've been going through the first year. So if you can see here, like, this is a picture from our first demo day. Things are a little bit blurry. People are still very excited in the beginning. And then these are the 6 startups we accelerated in the first batch. Now, we moved forward, and then we got to our second batch. People look here a little bit more uptight, and they're like better dressed maybe, and things are a bit more organized. And this is a bit our progression. And in the second batch, we accelerated 7 startups, actually. So these are the 7 startups to accelerate in the second batch. And lately, we launched our third batch of acceleration. That was not a long time ago. That was like a month ago. And this is the launch event. You can see that people are excited again for the launch, and hopefully they're going to be uptight and ready for demo day. And finally, these are the startups we are accelerating right now. Now, you may wonder, like, what happened to the startups we accelerated and what are the results? And this is something I think the whole ecosystem is looking at in terms of what have we accomplished and how valuable is this for startups. So far we have accelerated 19 startups. By December, there will be 19, since right now we're in the third cycle. And out of these, 18 are still up and running and operating in the market. Some of them you might have heard of, and you have seen their services in the market already, and that's something we're really proud of. That has created more than 60 jobs, and at the same time, some of them are going to get investments very soon. Actually, 5 of them are raising around $2 million in total of investments, and that's going to employ more people in the market, and that's going to allow their startups to move to the next level. And this is something we're really, really excited about and very proud about. This is basically what I wanted to cover about Speed. I'll definitely be answering some of Abdullah's questions or your questions in a bit, and I'm available for other details you might need regarding Speed.
Thank you, Sami, for the presentation. I'm just going to ask you a couple of follow-up questions so that people
Can
know.
you run the video just quickly for them to get a
Oh,
feel
yes,
of the
there is a
demo day?
video.
Sorry. Yeah.
Okay.
This is basically our demo day, the last demo day that happened a month ago, 2 months ago actually, and it highlights a little bit the spirit of what we do during the demo. So basically what we do at Speed is that we receive a lot of applications and then we have to filter out those that we want to get into the program. And we are very, very strict on quality. And that's why what matters the most from the beginning when we are selecting the startups is the team. We look for a team that's committed full-time on the startup, and we try to make sure that they are in the mindset that they're in it for the long run, because a startup is a 5-year at least plan, not a 6-month thing. And we require them, of course, to be full-time, at least during the acceleration and a bit after. Basically, we also look at a technical co-founder in the startup because we are focused on tech, and we want to make sure that the team has all the skills needed to build the product. And we want them to have a bit of a global mindset. We want them to have an idea that's scalable worldwide. If someone is just looking at a very small scale or very local market, that's something that we try to push back on and make sure that they have the capability and will to go global, since the local market is a bit small, so we want them to go global.
All right, another question for you. Does the speed model, is it in line with any global or regional accelerator model? And if so, what is the model like?
Yeah, so basically, Speed, when it started, it tried to take the Y Combinator model and implement it in Lebanon. What does that mean? Like, what's the Y Combinator model? It means it's a very structured model. We have a 3 months intense program, and that program includes the funding and the trainings and the workshops. So we're very structured. We give a certain amount of cash and certain amount of in-kind services in return for some equity back to Speed. And the other thing we try to do is to bring to the table some international expertise. So we have 60 plus mentors on our board. Maybe like 30% of them are from big international corporations, including Facebook, Amazon, Google, Microsoft, Skype, you name it. And the reason we try to do that is to give our entrepreneurs the best opportunity to learn from what's out there from the biggest ones in the world. So that's basically.
Okay, and one last question before I think we can play the video. Are there any, what challenges do you face in Speed? Maybe in terms of operations or in terms of attracting applications or other stuff?
So since we started, I think the main challenge in the Lebanese market has been basically around getting high quality startups. So we have capacity at Speed to get up to 10 startups every batch. But as you have seen, we got 6 in the first, 2nd in the second, and 7 in the second, and 6 in the third. And the reason for that is that we wanted to keep the quality high and not compromise on it and get any 10. So basically the challenge is to get high quality entrepreneurs to come join our program and be part of the acceleration. And this is not easy to find. The technical resources in the country are very rare. And according to some numbers out there, they took the AUB example. It seems that around 80% of engineering degree graduates from AUB leave the country 3 months post-graduation. And that's a big number. And this is something we're still facing as a challenge on a daily basis.
All right, I think we have some questions in the audience.
My question is specific as to the amounts you give. You give $30,000 in cash and 30 in services.
Yes.
And how much do you take in return from the equity of the company? And is there a way that the founders can buy that equity back for you at another stage, or is it?
It is structured in a way we take 10%, and this is non-negotiable. In terms of the founders buying back the equity later on, this hasn't been something that we had to negotiate yet, but I'm sure if there is a case where it makes sense for them to do so, we are open to think about it. But right now, it's not an option, no. Like, it's not an automatic option part of the program, to fully answer you.
Right, somebody else had a question over there? Oh, same one? Okay. Any other questions?
I understood that the investment that you're putting in Speed is like $6 million for startup, and you gave out of this $6 million, $3 million in cash. The $6 million, is it just, I mean, the $3 million you give in cash in terms of 30K per venture. Is it a kind of loan given to the venture, or I mean, the venture, is it liable for a kind of loan of 30,000 or 60,000 to return it back with time?
No. So the 60K is in return of the potential 10% equity. So we're taking shares in return. We're buying into the company, and as soon as they incorporate, they are required, part of the contract they sign with Speed, to allocate 10% of their equity to Speed. So
for instance, if somebody would have a venture and he would think that his venture value is 300,000, and he's ready to give you out 10% for the 30K plus the training you are giving, do you accept such a file? Let's say I have a venture for 300,000, while I can provide 270,000, and I would take that 30,000, to give you against 10% of my venture. Plus, I'll get the training for me and for the people around me to start up.
So you mean you would pay us to get the training?
Not like paying you us, but not like paying you, but you're already giving me 10% for the value of 30,000. What if I already have some cash and my venture value is more than 30,000? Because 30,000, let's be straight. I mean, it's very small for any venture to start up. I mean, even if you're talking about an app, if you want to develop a good app, it might cost you 60, 70, or 80,000, or maybe 100 or 200,000, for a game. So 30,000 is a very small amount for any startup to start, to take over, to start. It's just very small. But let's say if you have 2 or 3 people combining together, and they can combine everyone 20,000 or 30,000, they can raise up to 60, 70, while they can count on you on the remaining 30 to make the whole setup coming to 100, while you take the 30 that you provide, you can take 10%. Is this possible?
So basically, we can look into that. We had startups where they had previous investors who had put some money in return of some equity, and then we came on board. The thing that we won't change is that the 30K is 10%. Now, if you tell me you're going to get 100K, 70K from angel investors coming on board, and then Speed would give 30K and do the acceleration, there is no reason why we would say no to that.
Okay, thank you.
But my point is that the only condition for you is to be a good candidate for Speed. Speed doesn't take late stage startups. You have to be at the idea or at the minimum viable product stage, which is very early stage. This is why the amounts are low.
Yeah, definitely.
And if I may add,
the reason we're talking is we're both on the board of Speed.
Yeah, so don't forget that you can consider that 30K is not a lot, but don't forget it's 3 months of acceleration. If you can burn more than 30K over 3 months, that's a lot. So the acceleration is 3 months and 30K for 3 months. So this is, I think, quite a lot.
And just to put things into perspective, none of the startups we accelerated were able to burn 30K in 3 months. They usually last with them for 6 to 9 months, because in the beginning they're just getting their product up to speed and running. And then our goal is that by demo day, they will be able to go to investors and raise the additional amounts. Our goal is to make them investment ready. So this is basically...
Okay, so you're saying that 30K is not the amount for the investment, it's just a startup. I mean, even if the investment can go maybe for 200,000, I mean, the 30K is not the amount required to start up the business, because I will go later to Kafalat or to any other funding organization.
Basically, yeah, they would go to a VC later on and they would get their 250K investment.
So how do you expect the 30K to be spent? I mean, when you're giving the 30K for this startup, how do you really, how do you think that they should spend it? If you want to give them a spending plan for for the startup people.
So-
How would you advise?
This depends on a case-by-case basis. Like each of the 19 startups we had a different case. Some of them spend it on buying a product they need to build their startup. Some of them spend it on development money. Some of them spend it on UI and UX kind of design. It depends, like some of them spend it on marketing. They spend it on legal, on all the stuff that the startup needs to get stuff up and running in the beginning before they would need the big money and go acquire their customer base.
It's somehow just to
Sorry,
show up the
if
case.
I may
that's
jump
all.
in here, let's limit the questions to one per person, please. In the interest of time, because there's a lot of people with questions here, and we still have 2 presentations. So I'm going to take
Okay,
only
thank
one
you.
more from for speed, and then we come back maybe after at the end.
I would like to ask on the size, what's the expected maturity, the size of the company that you invest in?
So basically, we look at idea or seed stage. What does that mean? That means someone is very clear about what the idea they want to execute on and how they're going to go about it. And then they come to us to build that product in 3 months' time. So that's one of the potential stages we get startups at. We can get them at a bit later stage like MVP. They have already developed an early product that kind of showcases how it works and they can test it. And they come to us at that stage because, for instance, their product would have needed more than 3 months to develop. So in that case, we prefer that they had something already done before they come to us. Now, if you're already at the growth stage and have customers and revenue, potentially you're more eligible for VC money than coming to speed.
But what I mean to say, what's the projected model? I mean, when you say, okay, we accept you at speed, what are you looking at as a size of a company to, when it continues its path, where will it end up in what size of a company? Is it the $200,000 company?
No, our goal is to get to the next maybe $100 million company, if not more. This is the goal we set, but at the same time, we have to be realistic. This is going to take time to achieve, to reach that stage. Meaning, maybe in the next 5 years, we would get one of those that gets to 100 million plus. If we can get a unicorn out of Lebanon, that would be amazing. But again, we have to be realistic. This is our goal. Let's try to achieve it all together.
All right, thank you, Sami, and thank you for the questions. And again, if there's time left at the end, we will come back to speed with more questions. Let me move now to Nicolas Rouhana. Nicolas is going to tell us more about IAM Capital, and I think he doesn't have a presentation, so I'm going to be leading the conversation by questions, and maybe you can just do the question and answer thing, or unless you want to talk about something you prepared. Okay, so maybe if you could just tell us how did IAM Capital come into existence, and what different programs do you have under IAM Capital?
Yes, okay, thanks. Hello, everyone. Just before I start, I don't know if you were at the opening session. Did you count the zeros and the billions? I mean, it's like impressive. And by the way, and they talked about the 331 funds. So we are a non-331 fund. So we are the new and outside the kid of the block. So we don't, and it's the extra money on top of the billions that were mentioned. So we come on top of this with the cherry on the cake. And then we're the poorest, by the way. We're a $15 million fund. So all the funds are much bigger than us. But we try to, as we have like a small flavor, and we try to make a difference because we play in the early stage where it's a bit hard to get access to finance. And as Sami mentioned when he showed the chart, you see in the later stage lots of funds. And so it's easier to raise more money than it is in the early stage. And one entrepreneur told me, I mean, when he counted the zeros, he said, I feel like I'm on a lifeboat surrounded by salty water and not a drop to drink. I mean, can you imagine that? So we need to really bridge this gap between this million zeros and the entrepreneur. So, and this is where we play in the early stage space. So, IAM Capital is the local arm for a regional USAID program. So 2 years ago, USAID launched a regional program, one in each of the 7 countries in the MENA, to help access early stage financing. And so we pitched our program, and we got 15 million to do 3 things, to really encourage and ease the access to early stage financing. So first of all, we do matching capital. So we match any investment that is going to an early stage business by any investor. It could be an institutional investor, or it could be an angel investor. So it could be private or institution. And here we signed, we have protocol of collaboration with all the institutional VCs in Lebanon. And by the way, our mandate is Lebanon, so we cannot invest or co-invest outside Lebanon. So we have protocol of collaboration with all the VCs that are in Lebanon, and we've matched most of them for the last year and a half. And we also are non-331 and non-tech also, so we can look outside the technology sectors. And just for your info, Atelier du Miel, who was one of the winners today, is one of our portfolio companies. So we look at tech and non-tech, and we look as well as at funding either businesses or even intermediaries. So for example, Speed is one of our portfolio companies where we don't invest directly in the startups, but we invest in intermediaries that would eventually invest in startups. So we can be a fund of fund eventually, and we're looking at ways to grow this industry. Example, we've co-funded a movie for that matter, for your info, and we're looking at funding a fund for movies as well to support this industry. So when I say we're the new kid on the block, but we have leeway to do some stuff, we are happy to be this lean, have this lean approach. So we match capital to close a financing loop. The second component to encourage early stage investments is we give insurance. We guarantee the investment. So we don't give cash, we don't give capital, but we guarantee the capital of the matching of the investor. So if an angel has $100,000 to invest in a startup or an early stage business and he's reluctant, he can come and say, I want to guarantee my investments, and we guarantee his investments. And if he wants out, we buy back his shares, 65% of the money, and then we take his shoes and go on. So this is another program never been done elsewhere in the world. So we are pushing for it with our program. And the third component is technical assistance. So again, we come up with programs to help this entrepreneur get access to finance, we do capacity building, etc. And I can talk about this 2-3 programs that we launched recently. So one, we started the first business angel network in Lebanon. And when I say this, and as Sami mentioned in his presentation, he talked about Seeders. So Seeders is a product that we introduced, and it's an attempt to create an angel network. And we noticed, and this came from really noticing and working with the ecosystem for some time, when we matched capital. We have the VCs, which are like Phoenician funds and what have you. We know where they are. But when we want to go outside the VCs and go outside the 331, there is no matching partners. There is no institutional investments. Diane Foundation, by the way, is one. So Diane Foundation matched us in Atelier du Miel. So we have to really look for impact funds to be able to match and make a difference and invest in companies. So we said, fine, we want to create this investment vehicle. Angels, by the way, if you look at recent studies in the region, angels invested in more of 60% of the companies. You have companies that are funded by angels. There are more angels in the cap table of a company than there are employees in the companies. So angels are there, but they're not structured. They're not structured. If you want to find an angel, you don't know where to go. You don't know where to go. Maybe you know someone who knows someone, but I mean, that's it. So we want to structure this angel network as is done elsewhere in the world. So, and we want it to be accessible to anyone. So everyone hears about startups, the Buzz 331. There are deals, there are startups that are coming out of Speed, accelerators, pre-accelerators, etc. And they're interested into going to the space. So we said, fine, want to create an MBA. And they don't know, by the way, these guys that are interested in financing, they don't know how to do it. I mean, they don't have the experience. And they don't have the resources nor the money. So we came up with an MBA, which is a master class for business angels. And we said it's a 1-year program where we get a class of angels, wannabe angels. They get together and they pool their resources and their money, and the entry ticket is 15K. You multiply 15K by, now the first class is 26 angels. We wanted to close at 15, then we had a waiting list, then we went to 20, and then we had 25. And then the last day, we went to 26 just because we wanted to start the class. So we started the class with 26. We have $390,000 of angel money standing there. So this is extra zeros to add to the billions, okay? And we guarantee as IM Capital 50% of the investment because we give insurance to the angels.
My question is quite simple. Bitcoin and blockchain, do you think any foreseeable future in investment, would you invest in companies or startups who are doing something with Bitcoin?
I think this should be addressed to the three of you. Probably to Jad first. Jad's VC fund focused on fintech. One of the things they focus on. So Jad.
Yes, actually, this is. I mean, we'll talk about the fund later on, but this is a very good question. I think from a fintech perspective, yes, it is if you like, the sexy investment today. The blockchain, the Bitcoin, even blockchain for other purposes. But I think we also need to think about the regulatory environment and the regulatory framework in Lebanon and in the region, because today these are new technologies, and I believe the regulators are yet to really understand their structure and the technical aspect, especially with all the pressure that you see today for compliance, etc., from a banking perspective. But definitely, from a technology perspective, this is one of the main, if you like, sectors that one, from a fintech perspective, needs to look at very seriously going forward.
All right, we're going to stop here with questions. Thank you, Nicola, for your overview of IAM Capital. Jad, I'm going to move to you. You are the only venture capitalist on the panel, and you run Phoenician Fund, which is a very new fund in Lebanon. Could you tell us more about how the fund came into play, who the banks funding it are, what do you invest in, etc.?
Sure. So we are Phoenician Fund 1. So we're a new fund backed by the central bank. So we benefit from the Circular 331, which basically guarantees 75% of the bank participations in the fund. We are a $50 million seed fund. We have now so far 12 banks that are invested with us. We have large banks and smaller ones as well. I think to just complement what Sami and Nicolas were saying. So our strategy is really quite differentiated from what you see today in the market. So first, we focus on the seed stage, and we're one of the first funds to have codified this in our investment strategy. And I think Nicolas made a very good point about, this is really today where you see the gap and you see all these big numbers, but the seed is what will drive the deal flow going forward. And I think this is where we really wanted to focus. The second differentiator is the sectors that we focus on. So we focus mainly on three sectors. The first sector is the fintech, which we talked about, and we believe that there are lots of opportunities on the fintech side. It's a very new sector, so when we started and we started talking about it, and I think we've also talked about it with the accelerators, with Sami and others, the reaction was there is no deal flow on the fintech side. And we really believe that this is why we need to create that deal flow, and we want to play an active role in co-shaping and co-creating fintech opportunities. And we'll talk more about how our team can add value on that front. The second sector that we focus on is digital health. Again, now we're starting more and more to see opportunities on the digital health side, and I think as in Lebanon we really have this capability. And one has to tap into it and inject funding into it, and it has to start at the seed stage, at the seed level. The third one, which is the most challenging in our view and in the market's view, is e-government. Yes, we do have a lot of challenges today on the e-government side in Lebanon. However, from a regional perspective, you have huge budgets that are being allocated to digitize governmental processes, to create new platforms of interaction between ministries and citizens, and to facilitate how citizens interact with their governments, and also on the public and private partnership side. We can talk more in detail about this if you have any questions. But we truly believe that Lebanon could be a capability hub to service the region, be it in fintech, digital health, or e-government, given the talent that we have today, given the ecosystem that is being co-shaped and created as we speak, to service the region. And e-government could be, maybe we might not be able to implement those systems and solutions in Lebanon, but we could potentially do that outside. I think, and from a team perspective, our team is a bit kind of different from what you see in the market. So we're a combination of consultants, advisors, entrepreneurs, and kind of asset managers. We do have a big concentration on the advisory side because we believe that at the seed stage, especially in Lebanon, you really need to start building capabilities with the companies. And you really need to complement those capabilities and help them and support them in growing throughout the life cycle, be it from when you start the investment up to when you exit. And this requires part of it is covered at the acceleration level, but this needs to continue with the companies, and this is where our role, with this combination, we believe we can actually address that need. And you see this is working quite nicely for us. So we've started back in December 2015, and we've kind of now we're investing in 6 companies, and this value proposition is very interesting for entrepreneurs at the seed and even at the early stage growth phase, if you like. So this is basically Phoenician Fund, and our philosophy is we do invest at the seed stage, but we also follow on. So if additional funds are required to create value, we are open to continue in funding, of course, up to a certain limit that is set by our investment policy. But we do kind of make sure that all the companies have the required capital to create value and to build the required capabilities to grow and become successful and hopefully have an attractive exit. Our value add is really that our team, for example, on the fintech side, if we take the fintech example, so we have out of 5 partners on the team, 3 partners only worked with large consulting companies, with large IT providers focused on the fintech side, on the financial services in the region and outside the region. So we know that we can add a lot of value. And from a pipeline perspective, yes, you're right. I mean, you see sometimes that the VCs are competing over the same deals. However, one thing that really is happening today is that even other VCs who have access to fintech opportunities are coming to us to co-invest because we can bring in that capability. And this is very promising and we've been very happy on that. And we're doing the same thing actually with other VCs as well. So this positioning, yes, kind of limits you to certain sectors, but at the same time, when you really have a specific strategy, this is also getting us deals from other players in the market.
Questions from the audience?
My question is, you all mentioned that you're looking for quality entrepreneurs. Can you please define what you mean by a quality entrepreneur? And if, as you said, Sami, there aren't enough quality, what are you doing to make them quality entrepreneurs?
So yeah, that's a very good question. So by quality entrepreneurs, we mean we need people who are capable of executing on what they claim they can execute. And to give more details, for instance, if you're looking at a startup that's in sector A, whatever that is, let's say it's in agriculture, you would want someone at least on the team to have some experience in that field who can bring it to the table. And you want a team that works well together. They have the right chemistry and they have the right set of skills. Whether that's technical, whether that's business related, whether that's marketing, depending on each startup. So the quality comes first from the set of skills these people have combined together when they came to apply to us. And at the same time, from their capability and their proven track record of executing some stuff. Now that said, not all entrepreneurs have a proven track record and experience. And we've had entrepreneurs in our program that are 17 years old. And they were even better than the 46-year-old people we had. So there is no really kind of definition of what age or what can make a good entrepreneur. You have to see people who are able and capable of executing on what they can do. And for instance, that guy who's 17-year-old, you sit with him, he's like talking to you like a 30-year-old at least, and he's on top of his thing. He did his due diligence, he did his study, he did his research, he knows what market he's getting into. So all these kind of things are traits that would help you identify the right entrepreneur, someone who's done his research, someone who has the right skills and the right mindset to lead a startup. Now, in terms of what we're doing to get high-quality entrepreneurs, we are honestly partnering with a lot of organizations, whether it's universities, so we are partnering with the AUB, with LAU, and with many others to try to build that mindset at the university level so that when they graduate, they already are at the right mindset and the right set of skills to get into the entrepreneurship business. That's one thing we're doing. The other thing we're also trying to achieve is that we're reaching out to the Lebanese talent, which is outside Lebanon. So we are getting in touch with the major hubs where we can reach those Lebanese, whether it's LabNet in California or in other places, whether it's top MBA programs or other aspects that we can look at in top schools, and trying to pitch this at least for the Lebanese because they have a reason to come back to Lebanon compared to many other entrepreneurs. So we're trying also to get those to come back and do something here and bring back that expertise that they have developed in a more mature market like the US or Europe. So that's the second thing. And the third thing we're trying to achieve is that there are other people in the market who are trying to tackle that problem, whether it's, for instance, Tripoli Entrepreneurs Club, whether it's Alt City, whether all the ones I mentioned in pre-acceleration. And we're trying to support them in any possible way, whether by sharing mentors or being with them in events, providing a workshop, meeting with their teams. Like not long time ago, we had our involvement with Teens Who Code, and we got a group of teens coming to Speed to see what it's like to be an entrepreneur, and we shared with them such experiences. So we're trying to spread across as much as possible to raise that awareness.
Okay, so you prefer like someone who went through Alt City for as and because there's the middle gap. So the university students, okay, they have the chance because now it's like really popular to be an entrepreneur. But the ones who graduated, the ones who are like in the midsection and they're interested in entrepreneurship, do they have to go through the other pipeline, like start from the Alt City, or to build there? I mean, there are skills, they have experiences, but there are skills therefore as an entrepreneur.
I think this is a very important point because one has to define what really quality entrepreneur means, right? And I think that this has like different definitions, and I believe Sami covered that quite well. But one has to also really, so our part as VCs, accelerators, is also, you will never have all the criteria checked, right? So you will have certain aspects, you will feel that there are certain leadership skills that appear, be it on the technical, be it on the business side, on the commercial side. And I think our job, and it starts with acceleration, pre-acceleration, and even at the VC level, is to really not penalize also certain entrepreneurs because they lack a certain skill, but our job is also to help them complement those skills and to become successful. However, definitely there needs to be some kind of passion behind that. It could be a technical passion, it could be a commercial passion that supports, that fundamentally lets you believe that this person could become successful. And this starts with what Sami mentioned. So do they know their market? Do they know their product? So sometimes you see people that are really know their product technically, but they can't really kind of articulate it properly, and they don't really know the market, or they know the market but they haven't looked at it, you know, from a limited kind of scope. So this is a very important, but again, you know, one has to take a leap of faith at some point on that. Let's be very transparent as well.
And I would also say that this is not really the responsibility of any single organization alone. Everybody in the ecosystem is working toward this goal because this is the make it or break it goal of the ecosystem. And I would add one more criterion, which I think is very important, is the ability of entrepreneurs to listen to feedback. I think if somebody doesn't listen to feedback, I think they are doomed to failure, and that's one of the criteria I use the most. Jad,
Thank you.
sorry, what did you want to say?
You all talked. Should I or not? I don't know.
If you have something to say, go ahead.
Yes.
I actually thought you were the most entrepreneur
No,
oriented.
relax.
No, the energy was.
No, I will. Yeah, definitely everything has been said, but I'll just add about this quality thing. You know, it's a learning process for the entrepreneur. Maybe so when they go and pitch to VCs, and it's the same elsewhere. You go to US, etc. They pitch to several VCs. It's a learning curve for them. You know, they learn every time, they fail, and then they start again, etc. So it's the root. This is how it works. Yeah, this is how it works. So this is one. Two, what we do about it, about the, as I said, mentorship is very important. So you really staying with the entrepreneur and helping him out through the journey. And I'll say just that MIT Venture Mentoring Service that we are a sister program with. They deal with MIT-based ventures. The failure rate is more than 50%. يعني so معلش. And for them, when they mentor these ventures and they have 50% failures, they don't care. They said, this guy learned something anyway. Yani he came through this process. After a few mentorship program meetings, he learned that it's not for him, or go and do something else, etc. It's learning. It's a learning process. So it's part of this fact of life. So they learn to be either better entrepreneurs or this is not for them. They learn something. So it's educational. هلا بعدين لا ما في blacklist. No. For example, take for example speed. Take for example speed. Speed they have to choose like only 10. إذا في 20 great, they have to take the best 10. أنت شو بنعمل؟ The problem is the other 10. The other 10 إنه طيب we have to keep them, take them somewhere.
Force ranking basically.
Sorry, you can take hub زي شيء. You can take hub best 15. طيب بتقول له طيب هوديك ال 16 عاطل يعني إنه لا أكيد مش عاطل. So the criteria. بس يا ريت فينا يعني يا ريت فينا ناخذ اكثر من يعني in Boston they have this mass challenge سامعين فيه. It's an accelerator يلي just appeared a few years ago. Demo day is 128 startups. 128 startups بالديمو day يعني ما بتشوفوا this is demo day 128 startups pitching قاعدين وعارضين 128
مثل مجلس النواب.
تعرف شو 128 we need to get there يعني we need to scale to get there 128 startup every 6 months demo day and coming from, and by the way this is another issue they don't come just from Boston يعني they come from all over the world يعني but كمان one aspect is to attract talents to come.
Jad, I have one follow-up question for you. Market size, entrepreneur quality, or product quality, which one is the highest priority for you as a VC?
Very good question. It really depends, but really what really matters to us is one, the team. It's very important that the team is fully committed. It has kind of a vision. Is not only stuck in squared, so to speak. This is very important, and their ability also to deliver and to drive and to lead the business forward. Again, you don't need to have all the capabilities and all the skills, etc., but at least you show early signs of, you're able to do it, because at the end, we're taking risk, let's face it. I mean, we cannot guarantee, or we cannot. So this is one very important aspect. The second is the market. So the market has to be there. Sometimes you create the market, sometimes you replicate something that already exists, but you only do it better. And us as VCs, this is always a challenge that we have, because sometimes someone comes up with an idea and you can't see the market, but really, frankly, you can kind of think a bit outside the box and be creative and say, this potentially could create a new market. So this is very important also for us. And then the product naturally is very important, but I think on the product side, unless it's really a breakthrough, cutting-edge technology, if you have the team and you believe there is a market, and you believe that the very proposition still stands, I think if you have a smart team, you have the market, then the smart team can kind of work on the product to make it successful, because you're never going to have a full-fledged product from day one, especially if we're working on the seed stage. But these are, if you like, of course, you still have other criteria like the value proposition, the need, the structure of the deal, the valuation. the ability of the team to attract talent, the availability of the capability in the said jurisdiction. Because as 331 also, we have to have the HQ and the company incorporated in Lebanon, and the majority of the capital invested in Lebanon. So you kind of look at all of this. This is more of a checklist, but where really you have the debate is on the team, on the market, basically.
Okay, we still have 8 minutes, I think. So we'll just take a couple more questions. Somebody, yes.
Hi. This is to everyone, I guess, because you all have some vested interest in the country and in the ecosystem. The question is, once you give them the early stage funding, even the later stage funding, what keeps them here? If you have billions in the GCC, technical expertise in Eastern Europe, infrastructure in Western Europe, what's keeping them in Lebanon long term?
Who wants to take that one? What keeps entrepreneurs here if you have money abroad and have opportunities abroad?
يعني opportunities to go and work abroad
No, for
instead
example,
of starting up in company or what?
The companies that have started up in Lebanon, gotten seed funding in Lebanon, gotten some acceleration in Lebanon, later stage funding in Lebanon, but then they realize that if they want specialized technical expertise, they have to look to Eastern Europe. If they want hundreds of millions, they need to look to the GCC. If they want infrastructure and bandwidth, they need to look to Western Europe. What keeps them really here rather than just...
go ahead. No, I mean, we're open to that. I mean, if the market says you have to go there, if there is a need, ما في مشكل. Please go. First of all, we invest in companies, all of us, that are global. يعني ما في. The Lebanon is a small market, يعني anyways. So
no, I don't mean as in entering or expanding towards these markets. I mean keeping the base here, where Lebanon gets the fruit of that effort.
If it makes sense, it needs to make sense. يعني مش هتجبرهم if it doesn't make sense, and if they go bankrupt and they have to stay in Lebanon and they have to leave or as they go bankrupt, then something needs to be done. يعني عرفت? So don't worry, we are flexible into finding ways of getting this to survive. يعني ما تفكر if you have to incorporate in New York to survive, there are ways to help them incorporate, to raise funds, etc. So don't worry.
I think, if I'm correct me, from what you're referring to is now you have these governmental programs in Saudi Arabia where they're pumping a lot of money, so you can get access money there. In Dubai, they're doing the same thing. You're saying if there is a certain technology, why would I want to be in Lebanon? I need to be outside. And what will keep the people here? I think that, look, I think today, let's be realistic, the talent and the entrepreneurs we are attracting are Lebanese. And frankly speaking, I was in the GCC. If you tell me come back in Lebanon and you have a platform that you can grow, where you can grow, I would do it. And this is what we're banking on. And I believe Sami mentioned something about this bridge between the GCC, US, which we're building with Lebanon, and you see a lot of interest. And I think this is what we should, this is one thing that is a bit on the soft side. It's not scientific, it's nothing, but I think it's kind of an invisible hand that is pushing this to happen. And I can give you examples from our fund. We have now 2 out of 6 entrepreneurs that used to live in Dubai. They had a very good, job, and they had the opportunity to set up in Dubai, but they decided to come back to Lebanon with their families for some reason. Maybe they're crazy with what's happening today. Yes, maybe it's sometimes it's irrational, but this is the case. And we're talking about very high caliber, talented people. And if they feel they have the liquidity, which we didn't have before, so people usually, let's face it, we used to go to Saudi Arabia because money was there. Today, if you have money here, then okay, check. For Lebanese, I'm saying. You have the right platforms like Speed, like the technical assistance that IM Capital is offering, like the money and the liquidity that we're doing, then great, check. The ecosystem in itself is kind of developing, and things are kind of moving the right way. So we're starting to get to a certain standard, and people are starting to understand what VC is. Culturally, things are moving, even on the legal perspective. We used to be very restrictive. Now we're kind of, being more lean on that front.
Just also, I think that both Nicola and Jad covered a lot, but I want to add just one small angle that we look at when we are seeing the startups. So we were able to attract some people coming back to Lebanon in our program. So we got people coming back from Barcelona, from London, from Australia. And from Turkey, actually. And similar to Jad, myself, I came back to Lebanon because of Circular 31, potentially, to run speed. So I used to live in the US. Now, what would keep them here? I think that's a very good question in terms of longer term, when they're going to grow and reach a stage where potentially they can access different markets and develop outside of the country. And to your point, I think we have to look at a couple of things. So there is a platform that's being created right now. And the success of this platform is going to be measured, maybe not right now, maybe in 5-10 years. And part of it is going to be of how much of that requirement from the central bank money for them to stay here was actually being able to apply and to keep those here. So there is simply the legal requirement for them to stay here that would make them, in a way or another, stay here, because when they're getting Lebanese money, they have to stay here. Now, in addition to that, the hope is to create the whole ecosystem around entrepreneurship that it is attractive enough for them not to even think about it to go out somewhere else. And let's say they go because there is a need in certain areas that Lebanon cannot offer, and we're all aware that the resources in Lebanon are limited, and some of the technical capabilities are limited in some areas. Basically, you have created an ecosystem with many startups and entrepreneurs who are building something here in the first, let's say, 2 to 3 years. And Lebanon offers something that not many people think about a lot, that to incorporate in Lebanon and start a company, it's much more tax-friendly and other stuff than so many other countries in the world. Yeah. And that's an advantage that's bringing people to start their companies here in a way or another. But add to that, once they're starting here the first 2 to 3 years, they're getting a little bit locked in the system in a way that they have their local services that are much cheaper than anywhere else, from legal to marketing to social media. Anything that they're going to use in the country, in Lebanon, is way much cheaper, as, say, from Dubai, which is our close neighbor. So if you think about that, there are so many reasons for them to stay here. And when they're starting here and they're getting all their stuff settled in the beginning and having their headquarters here, they're not just going to take it and move it somewhere else unless, like, there is a big, I don't know, a buyer like Google buying them or something like that. So our hope is that to create that right environment for them to really prosper and them like really stay here. We want to foster that. That's the goal.
Thank you very much for attending. Thank you for our panelists. And as I said, we're going to be here afterwards.